Welcome to The Disappearing Mind, a unique podcast helping you find clarity and support along your dementia journey. Now, join National Dementia Trainer and Coach, Dawn Platt, for an all-new episode.
Hi, and welcome to the Disappearing Mind podcast. This is Dawn Platt, your host, dementia coach, memory care professional. And today in the episode, I've done something a little different. And it came from a conversation that I had from a colleague. And in that conversation, we were just talking about some of the services that she provided at the company that she works for, which happens to be an affiliate of the company I work for. But other than that, I wanted to tell you that an interesting thing came up in our conversation. I was very impressed with what she had to say. And this episode is different in the fact that we're going to talk about alternate services or support services or information that you probably are not aware of. And I know that I have been in healthcare for a number of years in most aspects of healthcare. Certainly in geriatrics my entire career, but I wasn't aware of this particular program. I wasn't aware of how it's supported, and I wasn't aware of who it covered and who it might be available to under Medicare. So welcome to the podcast today. I have with me Tammy Rosso from Discovery at Home. Tammy is the regional director?
Correct.
Okay, of Discovery at Home. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm happy to be here.
I know that I've told my audience that we were having a conversation. And that's really how this started. And in that conversation, you mentioned to me about a program that Discovery at Home offers. And I want to get into that. But before I do, tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Discovery at Home.
Perfect. So I am actually a registered nurse since the 1980s. So I have a genuine love for taking care of our residents and the compassion that goes with it. I work with Discovery at Home, and I've been with the company for 5 years. I started working with Discovery at Home based on my background. So my background has a vast variety of anything from clinical components to research components. And then I had some marketing components as well. And then I had a situation with a family member who needed physical therapy, extensive family member with traumatic brain injury, actually. And so that brought me into learning more about home health. And I have been fortunate working with this particular company because our leadership team recognizes that home health goes beyond just your nursing and your physical therapy, but there are other aspects to the holistic approach to the care. So it's getting the compassionate nurse, and it's getting somebody to understand that it's not just physical, it is cognitive, it is social. There's so many aspects. And so our company has been great at exploring and expanding to kind of bridge everything together. So with my past history as a nurse, as well as my family history with the therapy aspects, and then working for the company that puts all of that together, that's kind of led me to this. Discovery at Home, yes, we do home health care. We also do personal care, and we do outpatient therapy and personal fitness. So we're different than in most other home health care companies. And then of recent, we've implemented some programs that are unique to Discovery at Home. We have what's called our Transition Acclimation Program, which is really helping our communities when residents are moving them in, that they're moving in and that they are they're not struggling with the move-in. They're adjusting, and this move-in transition is smooth.
Well, there's another podcast. I would love to dig into that.
I would be happy to do that.
When we finish this one, because that is so important to me. And a lot of people don't realize how valuable that is, the transition part. So today I brought you here for one reason and specific reason. And I'm pretty excited about this. And the reason that I'm excited, I want to tell the audience because the audience is not necessarily people who actively have dementia, but perhaps a younger person, maybe a grandchild or someone who's experienced it in the family and are curious or wanting to know. And I always like to give resources that they may not need now, but in the future. And your program is unique. And that is because people can go to a doctor and a neurologist for a diagnosis. And once they need active care, they can go, get private duty or have a little home health, or they can go to assisted living, memory care, or nursing home. But what comes in between? So what we see in a lot of areas is maybe memory care clinics where they can go, but those are far and few between. Mm-hmm. This is a program called CAMP that I want to dig into and talk about because it's valuable. So I'm going to be covering today, what it is, who qualifies for it, what could be expected, and then who benefits. Because, I know it's not for everybody, once they've been progressed in the stages. But what is CAMP?
So CAMP stands for Cognitive Assessment Memory Program. And it is, as you said, it is unique. It is not well known. And as we talked about earlier, it's also near and dear to my heart as it is to yours, anything around cognition. But it is a 4-month program that is backed by Medicare. And it is designed to assess and treat cognitive deficits. The program is actually performed by a nurse who visits with the resident and does interactive activities to help to identify the areas that might need where there might be some memory issues. And so what they do is they do cognitive therapy through a tablet that actually improves muscle memory. And we have seen the results. And in many, many, many cases, we've seen individuals go from really struggling with retention to being a lot more independent.
So typically what we're going to see, and this is a clarifying question, right? Typically what we're going to see is someone who qualifies for Medicare, someone with a certain diagnosis, and can they be at home in an independent living and even in an assisted or a memory care community?
Correct. So to qualify for this program, you do need to have a couple of things. One, you would need to have the qualifying diagnosis. And that could be a range from mild cognitive impairment to Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, and even in some cases where there's been some memory issues post-COVID. But you do need the qualifying diagnosis. And then you also do need to qualify based on whether or not you will be able to get any gains from this program. So we do a brief activity. And with that brief activity, we determine if in that range, if this is something that will actually benefit you. It is a Medicare program, so anybody with traditional Medicare, it is covered 100% for the full 4 months. You do need a medical provider that will write the order for the program, and the medical provider would also need to substantiate through a note stating one of those diagnoses, and that you would benefit from home health because it does fall under home health, but you would benefit from home health cognitive assessment memory program.
Wow. So there are some stipulations around qualifying for home health. What are those?
So you do need to be homebound. And in many of these cases, they are homebound. And a lot of people get homebound confused because they think that you are not capable of getting out of the home, which is not entirely true. It's basically when it's a taxing effort to get out of the home. So somebody who maybe can't drive,
Okay, that's good.
yes, it might be somebody who has physical limitations, again, cognitive limitations. And so in those situations, you still would be able to qualify for home health. And again, you do need a medical provider to write the order to also state that this program would be beneficial and that you meet the requirements for that. To your question earlier, anybody can be identified for this program. So you can be in an independent living for sure. You could be somebody at somebody's church. You can be a family member. What we'll see is when somebody's identified, you might notice things like an individual is suddenly becoming more isolated, more withdrawn. Or you might notice that somebody is just they're not as sharp as they used to be. They're forgetting objects. They're forgetting names. They're forgetting places. The individual themselves might notice. They might be recognizing that, at one point I was able to do more, and now they're getting frustrated, and you're seeing the anxiety increase because they know something isn't right. They know that they should remember something. It's something that they've done this routine over and over, and now suddenly they're getting stuck in there. And honestly, when these things are identified by whomever, the earlier we start the assessment and start the treatment, the better the outcomes are going to be. And we do see that over and over. So I would recommend that the minute anybody is identifying, I'll put an interesting fact out there, Dawn. Statistically, about 40% of our population over the age of 65 has some type of age-related memory loss.
Wow, that's a big number.
Exactly. And so we don't want to wait for that to be so advanced, and when we can intervene at an earlier state. It's like any kind of therapy, right? If I'm doing physical therapy and I wait until the pain is so severe and I've become so debilitated, it's going to take longer to recover to that, and I may not get to the level where I had hoped to get. So cognitive therapy is the same. We're treating that muscle memory. And what we want to do is start early. And we do expect, just like physical therapy, we're going to have little peaks and valleys. But once we start this program and we see that you're doing well and you're having fun with it, we advance to a higher level.
This is very exciting, and it's very motivational for me. There is something that you can do about your forgetfulness, about your memory. Yes, right now we know that that's early. And, let me say to the audience, mild cognitive impairment, MCI, or, early cognitive impairment, even moderate cognitive impairment, are usually that's the point you go to the doctor and they give you that MCI or that vague diagnosis and say, come back in 6 months or even a year. This touches that. And that is what, by the way, we're recording in June in Brain Health Month. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but this fits that brain health category. This fits the opportunity to see if we can make a difference. And that's hopeful. There's not a lot of that out there, Tammy. And I think that families, I'm so happy that you came and we can talk about this, because I don't know how many doctors refer in this, and I don't know how much this is out there in the community. And I feel like on the podcast that we're giving solid information. Now, the evaluation, is going to evaluate whether you qualify or not. So I don't think people need to worry about that. And think about, people could, really take these steps themselves, have the evaluation under their Medicare. And obviously, if they don't qualify, they'll have a clinician talking with them and evaluating. And even if they don't qualify, being able to make another suggestion. That doesn't mean they don't qualify for your other services. So, this is really exciting. Who is the ideal candidate for camp?
The ideal candidate is the individual that really wants to have more quality of life,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizes that they don't currently, something is slipping. They will recognize either their thought process is slipping, or they're getting more agitated, or their social life is slipping. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a big one. A lot of times it really is the friends that will pick up. You're not
Mm-hmm.
coming out, or you're a little more unkempt, or something is off, So, and that is the ideal candidate, is when somebody is either identified or identifies themselves as having this struggle that they didn't used to have. And then it's once they're in, again, we talked about the medical diagnoses that are qualifiers. And then it really just is somebody that's willing to participate. An interesting thought with that too is, yes, we use a tablet, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
talk, I'm sure, more about the advantages of that. But even with the tablet, I think initially some people will say, oh, well, mom or dad won't use a tablet. That's their first thought. And what we're seeing is that when an individual uses the tablet, they get more excited. They are more engaged.
Mm-hmm.
They're wanting to participate more. And then the families are also seeing that, this is an extra side note,
Mm-hmm.
they're seeing their loved ones becoming a little more technology savvy. And there is nothing, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, that
Mm-hmm.
a family member wants to see more than mom or dad genuinely know how to use a phone. That's a lifeline for them these
Yes.
days. And so any technology helps them get better at other technology. So as long as they're willing to participate and they have a qualifying diagnosis, to your point, also, I do agree. I'm glad it's Brain Health Awareness Month.
Yes.
Our doctors don't know enough about this. And
Mm-hmm.
I think this podcast is going to be really helpful with that. And it is something that I personally am trying to tackle, because we don't know what we don't know. And this is definitely, there's so many people that can benefit from this program.
So walk us through the process. What does a day-to-day look like? Or what does, the day look like from referral to getting started?
Okay. So once somebody is identified, the very first thing we will do is, depending on who identified the individual. So if it is somebody who's got some cognitive impairment and they have a power of attorney or something of that sort, the next thing we do is we'll contact the most appropriate person.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk to them about this program so they know what they're getting into. And we explain to them that it is covered by Medicare and it is a 4-month program. And you'll have a nurse come out on a regular basis to
Mm-hmm.
treat for this program. So once we have had that conversation, then the next part is that screening. And with that screening, that's going to be a qualifier. So I'm going to be honest with you, though, we have had individuals where we've done the screening, and I'm going to share a story
Mm-hmm.
where we had an individual who didn't qualify through the screening. And it was sad because the husband was the one that really wanted her into this program, and she started crying. And in that moment, as we're, kind of tying things up, I said, she's cognitively aware enough that she knows she wants and needs the help,
Mm-hmm.
but she didn't qualify.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back and I talked with the husband. I was like, the two don't really add up. Like, this person wants the help, and they're recognizing that most people, when they're advanced in their dementia or whatnot, they tend to not recognize that they're missing out on something.
Sure.
So I went back and talked with the husband, and he said, you know what? I said, is there a better time when she's more alert? And so we went back and she qualified, moved up a few points, and that was all it took.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, she is a success story. This is somebody who has been through 3 episodes of this program and who walks out of her apartment now, and she's picking out her own outfits. And he is not the first one out the door. She is. She's become more engaged. Her confidence level is through the roof. So I went off on a tangent there. I apologize.
No,
but
that's
I get
exciting.
excited.
And let's point out, let's highlight what you just said. So as a dementia practitioner and coach, people have various cognitive levels throughout the day. Some people function better in the morning, some in the afternoon, but there are variances anytime there's mild cognitive impairment, moderate or full-blown dementia. And so that is a great point, is that testing or evaluation can fluctuate. And the fact that you, were wise enough to recognize that she knew what was going on, and she recognized, the fact that she didn't qualify. That was very intuitive of you. So let's talk about the visits a little bit more.
Let's do it.
What could a family expect with the visits? How, is it weekly? Is it biweekly? Is it monthly? And who comes out? And, how does that work?
So when somebody qualifies and we get the order from the medical provider, a nurse will come out and do weekly visits. Could be more, but generally it's weekly. We work in an environment that's quiet so that the individual on the program is fully engaged and able to participate and stay able to concentrate. So then a nurse will do what we call an initial assessment. Through that, they're going to do a series of activities that kind of hone in on various things. It's visual recall, auditory recall, impulsivity, which is a big one, processing, language, immediate recall, delayed recall, and activities of daily living. And so different activities kind of highlight where the strengths might be. So for example, maybe we review a story with them, and then there's questions at the end of the story. And so that's more of like how they respond to those questions is kind of going to rate them. And then we'll do other activities. So for impulsivity, for example, there might be where you see different objects kind of like dropping, floating down. And how do you grab them? Are you grabbing the right color? Are you grabbing the right shape? And it's a lot of fun. It's highly interactive. And then towards the end of a session, they might go back to that original story and ask those questions again and see if they can remember those answers, which is kind of focusing in on the delayed recall.
Sure.
So that's a really high level example, but we cross over all of those. We might do a list maybe we say to them, can you, as quickly as possible, give us list some holidays for us or list the states. And so everything that they do is tracked and scored. And so week over week, what the nurse will do is they identify, based off of that initial assessment and those scores, what areas could benefit from gain. So they'll go in and they'll do more activities that are similar. Again, the goal is to challenge them. So if they get a little plateaued, we're going to increase that level. And if they start to get frustrated or anxious, great news. We can pull back and drop a level. And then just because the goal is for it to be fun. And what we see over time is in many of these areas, we see improvement. At a minimum, we see that there was no loss. And so over 4 months, so we do start to see the peaks, sometimes pretty immediate, but around the 2-month mark is when we'll actually start to see the real gains. And so Medicare does like this to be a 4-month program because most home health is usually about 60 days. And this is right when they're peaking. So we do try to keep it going and maximize that. And then after 4 months, we do ask them to take a break. Medicare requires a 2-month stop. That can be a little frustrating sometimes to the family.
It's scary for the family and the client.
Absolutely. So we highly encourage the individuals, keep doing activities, keep doing puzzles, stay socially engaged. But they are eligible to go back on after those 2 months. And so it's really nice to have that ability to go to the medical provider and say, they really improved in these areas. And everybody is usually on board to get them restarted. We have seen people who are on like a 3rd episode, which would mean their 3rd time on a 4-month treatment plan. Actually, time over time, when they do that initial assessment, they're actually holding or gaining over time. So that is not for everybody. We recognize that, but it works. And what my favorite part is the smiles, the increase in self-esteem, the confidence level. And they're coming to us, family members especially. They're coming to us. Can we start? Can we start? So it's beautiful. Yeah.
I love this. I have so many questions. So talk a little bit about the technology and tracking progress. How does that work? Who gets it? Who analyzes it?
Mhm.
And talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So the nice thing about it being on a tablet is that you can't manipulate the data, right? It is what it is. It does allow for us to see the actual progress over time. The reports are really nice. The family has access to the reports, which is really nice because a lot of times the family doesn't recognize how advanced they are. And in certain situations, that is important information to know. Maybe they do need a higher level of care. And so it's really nice when they can see the data for themselves. But on the flip side, we've had situations where somebody's discussing a higher level of care. We put this program in, we introduce it to them, and we are seeing that they don't necessarily need it at this point. And so they can stay in their home, which, let's be honest, that's where they're going to thrive. So the medical providers have access to the reports, the families have access to the reports, and the reports basically, like I said, those areas that we mentioned, auditory recall, visual recall, immediate delayed, all of those, they are tracked with each session. And then at the very end of the 4 months, it provides a comparison report. So you can see where you started and where you ended. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes. And so essentially camp is a gray matter workout. It is building gray matter in the brain. It does a couple of things at various degrees, but it does it. That's the thing. I think being in dementia care for so long, this is something that was not available before. So 1,000,001 questions, but here's the one I'm going to come out with. So where did camp come from? Like, where was it a few years ago? I had never heard of camp. I've been around a long time. Tell us a little bit about the history. And does every home health care company have it?
Great question. So we heard of camp actually a few years ago. We were approached by them. It is campformemory.com to know more information. But when we first aligned with camp, it worked out really well because we provide home health, but we also provide personal care. And as you know, sometimes there is an overlap to that. As we all know, Medicare has identified that prevention is key.
Yes.
And not just cognitively. Like back in the day, Medicare realized where is the money going? Well, we're treating that hip that because we had to do a hip replacement or whatnot, or after a hip, dislocation, whatever. But maybe if we were in there doing physical therapy, we could have prevented that fall. We could have prevented that hospitalization and that rehab. So over time, we recognized, Medicare recognized that sometimes we're getting hospitalizations due to our cognitive issues. So for example, somebody might be having that fall because they're forgetting to use their walker, or somebody might be forgetting to take those medications that are really important, or forgetting their doctor appointments with the specialist and getting their labs done. All of that forgetfulness, unfortunately, has and can, I should say, lead to hospitalizations. And so Medicare has recognized that prevention in the way of cognition is key. So this program with the Camp for Memory has really it's come to the surface. And not every home health agency is doing that. We are privileged to be able to do that. We're designed to do that. We have the clinicians to do that. Again, we're also, to your point you had mentioned earlier, what if, not everybody does qualify? We're positioned that we can do the old school treatment, which I'm sure you're familiar. Sometimes they would put a speech therapist in there.
Yes.
So we're in a position where we don't have to say no. We can say we've got options. But definitely with this program and being aligned with the Camp for Memory, It's been very successful, and they're great. They work with us. They help get our nurses trained on the program. And then obviously that feedback that we get in real time is helpful as well.
So to the families out there that may live in another state,
Mm-hmm.
may not live locally, are concerned about their parent or loved one in any way, this would be a great opportunity for you to reach out to the physician or to reach out to Discovery at Home if your family member, loved one, friend lives in an area that they cover. Not all home health agencies offer this. It is pretty distinctive and something that to be very proud of. I really feel like it's a service and a product that is just really amazing. To help people who are in that in-between space to be able to do that. So how would somebody, and I know you've briefed this, but talk a little bit about what areas that you cover, states, whatever, and then also talk a little bit about me. I'm a daughter who lives in another state from my parents. How would I go about navigating or even getting evaluation for someone?
Absolutely. So Discovery Senior Living is pretty much throughout the United States at this point. We have locations throughout the United States. Discovery at Home currently, you can find us in quite a large chunk of Florida and Texas. That does not mean if you're hearing this podcast and you want to know more information, you can absolutely give me a call and we can put my contact information out there for you. You can also go to Camp for Memory. I would say by far, though, the very first thing, if you identify someone or you identify within yourself that this program might be beneficial, first thing to do is contact your medical provider. Your medical provider, if they don't know of this program, they can reach out to Camp for Memory, especially if it's somebody like a neurologist or a psychiatrist, and they can learn through them, excuse me, and get the program established with them as well. There are some tools, obviously the tablet, and we want to make sure that everything, the details are in place. But the very first step, by all means, is to talk to your medical provider. And then this is growing. The program itself is growing. Discovery at Home is growing. So when and if we can help somebody, we absolutely will, or at least point them in the right direction.
So let's just go over again. I want to make sure that people understand that this isn't a pie in the sky type program, but it really is a nice alternative. It's something to look at. Your physician may not even know anything about camp, and that's what I found so amazing that we could bring Tammy on the show today and begin to talk about this. But I want families to understand, what changes that they might see, what success might look like for them. And Tammy, with dementia lasting the longest in the middle stages, it's a wait and see game for families. It is really, really the point when I coach families that they really suffer. They have so many questions, and that's a long time. And then for the person who hasn't, who's just recently been diagnosed, they probably had dementia or cognitive impairment, let's say that, for some time, and nobody noticed or nobody paid attention, or there was nothing we can't do. Kind of wait and see. I've had families come out of doctor's appointments and have no questions answered, right? Have nothing going on. And this casts hope in a new light. I will be a crusader for camp. I'll tell you that. I will tell all my friends and colleagues. But who's the ideal? Tell us a little bit more about some of your clients, patients, residents that you serve, because I know you serve them all over. Tell us a little bit more about how this can help.
So I think it's interesting because, to your point, what I have noticed is that when somebody does become a participant of this program and they see the results, so they have that data, but they see outside of the program, right? They see that increased confidence. They see them socializing. They see them more engaged. They see them owning their actions and their words again with with a smile on their face. So honestly, what I have noticed is that as people go through this program, more people are wanting to go through this program. Word of mouth. I have a situation in an apartment type structure where this neighbor told that neighbor who told that neighbor, and coincidentally, they all did qualify. So they were all at that point where they had some memory struggles. And so we see that happens. We see nurses, medical providers who, to your point, they've come to the doctor, they've talked to the nurse, and their hands are thrown up in the air and they're just like, what's next? And they're just kind of in that wait and watch mode.
Yeah.
And then they see the results of this. And so they're fully on board with it, because why wait and watch when there's something that can actually help you stay as sharp as possible for as long as possible? And something else that is pretty common these days is we're aware that when somebody starts to have cognitive deficits, a lot of times there is discussion around medications, and it is appropriate in many cases. But a lot of times the individual or the family, that's where they start to get real hesitant. And what's really nice about this program is it's not medication based. Again, if the medical provider feels that's appropriate, but it's therapy based.
Yes,
And
I love
that's,
it.
it's working on muscle memory versus medication. So it's not only another option, but it's another way of looking at this program in as a whole, and why it does get such support at multiple levels.
Well, I have seen for over 30 years, mostly people that have come to memory care, they're well into their diagnosis, but what if they would have gotten identification? What if they would have gotten intervention? They would have remained independent longer. And I've seen it through the therapeutic approach. Really miraculous, I'm going to say miraculous outcomes through therapeutic approaches, through programming and different types of routines and cognitive behavioral stimulation, all of these things that, I think there's hope on the horizon. I'm hoping for a cure. I'm very involved in the Alzheimer's Association and what they do. And even they are turning to behavioral programs, and they're looking at brain health prevention programs like never before. And that is just a change, because we're growing and learning in the medical field what is possible. We're extrapolating more data. And so your program, CAMP, will influence that, because you'll have real-time data that, can help. And it may not help everyone, Tammy, but what if it helps some? Correct. I think that's the hope that I want to cast today. So tell us again, I want people to know how to contact you. I want to do another segment on this, because I feel like that this is something that we need to dig into. I think it's too new and too unknown, and I want to spread the word about this, because families can take advantage of it. And for me, having a personal experience, if I could have had this for my mother before she passed, I would have taken great advantage of it, and it would have brought me peace of mind, because my mom would be going to therapy of some sort, right? Not physical therapy, not occupational therapy, but really brain therapy, therapeutic therapy, and that really works on helping with memory, maintaining memory. And, I always like to say to families, I talk about early diagnosis, early detection. Even when you have the diagnosis and you're moderately into dementia, I still talk about maintaining cognition. Maintaining cognitive reserve produces quality of life. And I have seen people progress all the way through and not cognitively decline to the degree that people who have no interventions have. And that, to me, is progress. So talk about that. Talk to the families. Tell us anything that you want everybody to know before we close this session. But
Absolutely.
We are going to do a part 2.
Absolutely. I'd appreciate that. I agree with that. When I look at results, I do get extremely excited when I see the gains, 1000%. But I am just as much as excited when I see even a stagnation, because the truth is, over that 4-month period of time, where that piece of stagnation is, could have been a decline. And where that increase in the improvements that we see, that could have also been a decline. So you're correct. Not having anything, unfortunately, allows the mind to slip the way it wants to slip. But having that in place, it certainly is prolonging the independence and the joy and just the quality of life. One thing I do want to hit on, and I hear this a lot, so I do want to bring this to the attention of the audience, but impulsivity. A lot of times when people think therapy, they think, well, dad won't sit through that because dad won't sit still, or, he'll give up after 5-10 minutes. The nice thing about this program is it addresses impulsivity. And so where somebody might in the first few sessions not be able to tolerate like a 30-minute session, we do see that improve over time in most cases. So it does address that. And I think that's important because it makes it different than most people would think for cognitive therapy. But outside of that, it's a fun activity. The activities are very much geared to the individual. Depending on how they do in the activities and the results, if there is an activity that somebody can't relate to, so maybe it's about processing and you're going from point A of, I have to get in my car to go grocery shopping, to the last point of where I am putting my groceries away. If there's somebody who doesn't food shop and that's just not something they've done, we'll pick a different activity. Why? It's not fair to them. And it also can create the anxiety. So this program has multiple avenues that you can go through to make sure that it's fun, it's appropriate, and to get the best results. And if they're engaged, they will want to do this program. And so we've just found that this program gives those alternate avenues to have them get engaged.
So did I hear you say, and this is something that I teach and I train healthcare professionals on, that it can help with redirection and distraction?
Correct.
Wow.
Yes.
So even if a family thinks, well, dad can't sit and do that, or dad won't sit and do that, this program understands that. And it is created to treat that at various degrees, obviously, but there's nothing like that. There's nothing like that outpatient anywhere that I am aware of. So, wow, this is so amazing. I cannot thank you enough, Tammy, for being on here today. Again, let's talk about your name, where you're at, how someone could contact you.
Yep, absolutely. My name is Tammy Rosso, the regional director of with Discovery at Home. Best way to contact me really is through phone. You can text or call 239-778-6461, or you can email me at trosso@discoveryathome.com. I will repeat that, at TROSSO@discoveryathome.com. I am very excited about this program, and I'm more than happy to talk to anybody who has any questions. And again, try to get them, get arrangements in place to help a loved one, for sure.
Tammy, thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you for having me.
Before I close today, I really am enthused about this. I get excited about a lot of things, but I'm always looking for something supportive, something out of the box. And this is covered under Medicare. So I want to say to the families out there, you are not alone. I want to say there is hope. Ask questions. If you have any questions about the podcast or the information I provided today, obviously, if it's directly about camp, you can reach out to Tammy at Discovery at Home. But if you have other questions in and around it and you want me to address those questions and maybe refer you to Tammy or to camp, please reach out to me at thedisappearingmind.com. I'm always happy to hear from you. I'm happy to take your questions and address any concerns you might have. That's what the podcast is here for. And I just want to say to you, until next time, this is Dawn Platt. Make it a memorable day.
Thank you for joining us for the Disappearing Mind podcast. We hope it's helped you find clarity and support along your journey. Be sure to subscribe to never miss an episode. Visit our website to suggest future topics and share the podcast with friends and family.